Gentlemen, hey, congratulations for your new film, Appalachian Dog.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much.
It is I it is such a wonderful film that you guys actually produced, especially how you actually pulled it off. But I have to ask that obligatory question is where the original idea came from for this film.
I know it's funny. It's the obligatory question. You'd think I'd have a better answer by now. It's I'm as a writer, I think I just come from a theme and a message standpoint. Once I know what I want my script to say, a lot of the other things kind of fall into line. And I think I am very driven by time periods because it's such a great way to isolate an audience and also reel them in. And the way that you can create, I mean, it's 1946, right? But we've gone for this really intimate post war kind of austere 1946. A different movie that takes place the same year could take place in Paris and deal with Christian Dior's new look, and that's a completely different version of the same year. So working in a time period allows this sort of like world building that's hard to do present day. It puts more obvious societal pressures on your character that can again help deliver a theme and a message home. And from a very practical point of view, I knew I wanted to make a movie that I could achieve. So I mean, the level of intimacy that exists in the film is partly very practical, but ultimately, it all comes down to what you want to say.
So Chad, I understand you produce this film along with Colin here. How are you brought on board? I'm assuming you're all friends then.
Oh yeah, so it's me and Colin are partners in life and art. So we've been together for about 7 years now, and so we're constantly writing and filmmaking. This apartment is just always alive with something, a new idea, a new pitch. And Colin came to me with this idea to make this film. Read it, was totally on board and ready to do it, and he also brought on Georgia Morgan, who's the third producer on the film. And from then it was go time. I mean, Georgia Morgan and Colin worked very closely together to help jumpstart the whole production. And I came in really kind of, my big, because I'm an editor, my kind of secret weapon was in the post production of it. So we were working closely together, sitting down in editing sessions every day for a long time.
For this film, 1946 is fairly specific, and not to mention that the location, the Appalachian Mountains, is very also fairly specific. For this type of story, it could have been set at any type of period, after any type of war, at anywhere around the world. Obviously, this has to fascinate you so much that you chose this setting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from North Carolina, so it's in terms of again thinking about what's workable, going, literally having like a homecoming to make this movie was part of the attraction to the space. But, I didn't grow up in the mountains. I grew up with them right there. And that culture is still so present in all of North Carolina. And I think, Appalachians have gotten not their fair share of really nuanced portrayals in mainstream media. We usually see, the hillbilly and not people with completely complex, fleshed out, emotional inner lives. And so part of my goal was really to go into that location that's often the butt of a joke and instead really dig into what life would have been like for them and show you that, these people that we can think of as other aren't that different from us, and also challenge some of what we might think of as typically Appalachian people or things. Like, obviously, it's not an all white cast, and obviously, there are queer elements to the story, and Appalachia is a place that can be very conservative. So, I also wanted to challenge that in this film.
Yes, let's talk about the themes that you actually presented in this film because it is quite unexpected, especially for the time period and with the modern themes that you actually introduced. Could you talk about the relationship themes that you want to introduce that it seems like everyone was reserved and holding in their own secrets throughout the entire film?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's like so universal, and I think the way it manifests in the film is very, very Southern. There's definitely an emphasis in the South of needing to put on a good face and caring a lot about how you're presenting yourself. So that's something that is ingrained in some level in every single character here. With that, it's really all about shades of gray then. There's this dissonance between what somebody wants and how they want to be perceived, or rather, there's a dissonance between how somebody wants to be perceived versus what they might really want out of their lives. And that's something that was very, very, very fun to dig into. And I think that's something that presents itself in a very Southern fashion in the film, but really is extremely universal and extremely applicable to any American living right now.
And what's exciting about the kind of more what we think of as like modern elements put into this historical piece is I feel like a lot of people think of history as this kind of like abstract thing, like, oh well, people weren't like us today back then because this was yesteryear, but people have always felt these feelings. And for me, what's moving to see when watching the film is it's as a queer person watching people who don't have the vocabulary that we have today discover who they are is really moving in itself because they have the same feelings, they just don't have necessarily the words to say it.
Exactly, because in that respect, it really is a timeless story. Um, you're just watching people who, yeah, don't have the vocabulary we have now. And that's what's really exciting to me is to see like how, especially queer people who watch it, how they receive it, which is really wonderful. But at the same time, there is something in there for everybody. I mean, Teddy comes home from the war and he wants his life to be back the way that it was. And that's something that's still present now when you have people who are deployed and gone for years and years and years and come back home. And, the wife or the mother of their children has had to be both mom and dad while he's away. And then he comes home and expects everything to like be the same. And it just doesn't work that way. So from that respect, that's really something that's still extremely topical. And the strains that puts on that relationship while it comes from a specific circumstance, it really is, it's universal. It's wanting something that you can't have.
You know what? You do make a good point. Even though this film was set 70 years ago, the same themes are still relevant today, whether it's the queer theme or the adultery theme or returning from a war, and you could easily see that happening in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I love period pieces because they get people a chance to kind of see themselves with like one layer of removal. Because I feel like sometimes when you hold a mirror up to yourself, it can be a little difficult to watch or something. But what's
Mm-hmm.
fun about period pieces, you're able to kind of transport people to another time, but these stories can be very timeless and
Mm-hmm.
timely.
Now, Colin, since your choice is the Appalachian Mountains, and you came from North Carolina, you must have drove your producers nuts finding these locations out in the middle of nowhere. So I guess Chad could put in his input. Tell us about these remote locations, or maybe it's not remote. Maybe you guys just filmed it outside a city somewhere on a farm. I don't know.
Well, I will say the main cabin, that's Marion and Teddy's cabin, was kind of a last minute find. And that was the most kind of like hair pulling out moment in all of production, I
Yeah,
think.
I was really in there
Yeah.
with him for that, like that week before, just like we're just like, okay, well, the movie's happening. We have the plane ticket spot. Where are we gonna film this?
I know
You
we
know?
had another cabin secured and that ended up falling through. Um, so I'm just, yeah, I can't say anything more than being so grateful that the location we had for that main cabin worked out because it was better than what we had initially gone with. And the farm where Kate works was a, this is all about, indie filmmaking, pulling what you can. It was a family, friends, like cousin's farm. So also very southern, very helping a neighbor out kind of thing. But it was somebody through Georgia or other producer, and that farm was absolutely beautiful because that had been in their family for generations. So the barn and everything, was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and we were very happy to film there, and that
Absolutely.
really adds to the authenticity of the time period.
And the rest of it, like the exteriors and things, that was us just going out, driving around, and finding locations. Sometimes we had to avoid tourists because it was a really, some of the areas, especially with those beautiful vistas, it could get unexpectedly crowded. So we were, thinking on our feet the whole time and just driving to little locations.
It must have been really tough as an indie project trying to keep all this, authentic and the aesthetics of 1946, while there's, very much a lot of modern stuff still, around in these buildings.
Yeah, I mean, we were really blessed in that the cabin was all vintage designed and whatnot already. The wallpaper in the dining room was this wonderful kind of like trendy floral print that would have been really popular even in the 1930s. And I think that is almost like how we tried to counteract a lot of modernity, is recognizing that for these people, and I mean, it's true for us now, but especially for these people, a lot of what they're surrounded by is already going to be 25, 50 years old. So really, unless you are Marion or Peggy and you're making your own clothes, you're also probably dressing like 10, 20 years behind the times. And yeah, a lot of the accessory things we tried to find things that actually looked more 1910s, 1920s. And then it is funny, there are some shots where there is like that modern paved road that is like just out of frame. And, we're just happy that that's the beauty of filmmaking, is it's like, you just don't see that.
Hopefully you're looking over there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, the aesthetics and the looks of the film. Tell us how you wanted to capture this, particularly with the cinematography. I mean, I guess you could name drop your DP if you need to.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Aiden Macaluso. Oh my
Love
God.
him.
He's amazing. And, in the same way that like this film was very much like written with the actors in mind, it was written with Aiden in mind as the cinematographer, because he has such this wonderful eye for making something so beautiful and so cinematic, but also kind of gritty. And that is really what we wanted, was that contrast. And that's present in how, they live in the mountains, they live out in the middle of nowhere. There's these beautiful vistas, but at the same time, each of these characters in their own way feels like their life and their world is closing in on them. So constantly having that contrast between these beautiful open vistas and then also the way that people are feeling compressed. So even sometimes there's scenes that take place outside, but we're looking at somebody outside through barn doors. So it's very creating an atmosphere of claustrophobia even in the outside was something really fun, and something that Aiden was so good at being able to find how to do that. And just the subtlety of how to frame people to create that tension. So even when two characters are having a really intimate conversation, we're up here looking down on them, and it creates a certain unease as you're watching it.
Yeah, voyeuristic. And also just like a practical producing level, it's really this is not why this decision was made, but I was happy it was made on set, because it's so much nicer for an indie film when we are like peering through these almost keyholes. It's like, oh great, we can have modern stuff all around it, just like move the TV around and we don't see it. So that's also really nice on a practical level, is keeping it very intimate. That can be a blessing in itself.
And for the period costumes, how much research was it that you folks actually put in? I mean, because you had both the costumes and the challenges of the hairstyle all in this film.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, luckily I'm a clothes horse, so I know a lot about clothing, and I take a lot for my own personal style. I take a lot of inspiration from vintage styles, and I also have just kind of been vintage clothing collecting for a long time. So a lot of those pieces are things I already owned, which was, a nice budget saving thing. But again, a lot of it comes down to recognizing who these people are in the world they live in. So Marion is somebody who would probably get to know kind of what is up to date and get to have dresses that are tailor fit, cinched in at the waist for the fuller skirt, versus Kate is somebody who's probably wearing her mother or grandmother's clothing. So she's wearing these like high necked sort of Edwardian Victorian blouses on top of a dress that maybe is more from the 19 or underneath a dress that might be more from like the 1930s. So she was a really fun character in that she lives in like 4 decades at the same time because it's all hand-me-downs with Kate, versus Marion is a lot cleaner and with hairstyles. So yeah, Kate has the messy bun when she's on the farm, and then she has her beautiful Victorian braided hairstyles during all these parties, which I will say that that was Haley that did most of that. Haley plays Peggy. She did most of that hair braiding for Brooke, which was very nice.
Thank you.
And whose wedding dress that you stole for that gothic look?
I know that was.
You should talk about how we.
Yeah,
that's a good little tidbit. Oh, sorry.
That was one of those pieces that I happen to already own because I scour thrift stores and vintage stores, and I've had that piece for probably probably over 10 years. I think I bought it for a short film that was shot forever ago, and yeah, that's something that was vintage clothing shopping is very like in vogue now, so it would probably be a lot more expensive if I were to have bought that for the movie, but I luckily already had it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
the way to because that dress is being worked on throughout the film, and we're not filming in order, obviously. So it has to be like more done than less done, then more done than less done. And that was something that I was like, I have no idea. Like, do we buy a similar looking dress? I don't know how that would work. And he was like, we'll just turn it inside out. And that was like the simplest, like most effective way. Just the dress is just inside out on a dress form for most of it, with just like different pieces of thing just like
you get
tacked
like lots
to
of
it.
pieces of lace that match the dress, and then they can be working on it. Yeah, it's fun.
And what's really cool is with the costumes is like there's vintage, there's just stuff that you've accumulated for years and years. But I want to talk about the one little fun thing that we found.
Oh, no, I don't know what it is.
Oh my God, there's one thing that we found. It's like you're collecting all these pieces, and the accessories are such a big part of it. And we were just like shopping in the city. We were at TJ Maxx, and we found this, or who found it first? Me?
I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about.
A Christmas tree skirt.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, because the skirts that go under a tree. I was like, oh, this looks fun. This has some like bows on it. What do you think, Colin? He's like, oh, that's really cool. So that TJ Maxx $20 Christmas tree skirt is Kate's shawl in a scene. She's wrapping the skirt around her, and like that's just like so fun. Like those little like quirks are so fun to like find in the wild.
Yeah, and I mean that kind of thing I guess goes back to like doing the research, because if you know what those pieces look like, then you can see the Christmas tree skirt and know that that looks kind of like a cape that would have been trendy around this time period or whatever. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I can't imagine like walking to your guys' closet to find all this eclectic vintage stuff.
I know.
We have our dress form right here, but there's not a dress on it right now, but it was looking a little scary behind me, so I just moved her out of the way. She's looking like a ghost.
Now, being this independent film, you kept this cast fairly small. Can you talk about the cast? Because at first I thought Colin was the only guy in this film until I saw what's his name who plays Andrew?
Oh, Aaron.
Later on. But tell us about keeping this cast very very small and intimate for yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is practical, right? I mean, we did a couple pickup days in New York, and then we moved down to North Carolina. So it was only the 4 main actors that went to North Carolina, and we did some pickup days in New York, which was great because then we had access to our wonderful New York actors like Monica and Aaron and Annie. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, part of it was that the theme of isolation was going to help up the stakes of all of those themes about desire. So keeping the cast contained was something in the writing that was really, really natural to help up the intensity on all of these, or on our main four characters. And then from a structural point of view, it's a nice kind of like breath of fresh air when you hit the halfway point of the film and then you meet Claudette and the world starts to open up, but just enough for you to understand the other pressures that our main four characters are facing.
Yeah.
How was the chemistry developed with the entire cast? Because obviously this is a relationship drama, and it's such a web that intervene with everyone else.
Mm-hmm. So Georgia and I both grew up in North Carolina, and we happened to meet during a like summer acting program intensive at UNCSA over 10 years ago. And then we ended up happening to go to the same college. Well, I say happening, and I will give her credit. Like, I remembered working with her in that random summer intensive when we're both in high school. And it was, yeah, an acting program thing. And I was just so impressed by her work. We were probably only like 16 years old or whatever at that time, I guess. And when I saw that she had gotten into the BFA program at SUNY Purchase, I recognized her name and knew like, well, if she's going to this school, then that's the school I want to go to. And best decision I ever made, because that's also where I met him. And so Georgia and I have known each other for forever. And Haley is somebody who is in our BFA acting company at Purchase, and Brooke is somebody who Chad has known for forever.
Since I was in 6th grade. So some of these, most of everyone in the cast, well, everyone in the core cast we've known for so long.
Yeah.
So we have that trust there already. And then, yeah, like in terms of like, rehearsals and on-set work, like
I think living where we shot was really, we lived in the cabin that we were shooting in. And I think that really helped with, because we already had, all the actors already had relationships with each other, but really allowing that trust to transfer into what those characters' relationships would have been was helpful, that we all lived together while we were shooting, because we're sharing the same space and you're not having to like show up to set. You're just already there. And it was that wonderful kind of gray creative area where you're never really leaving your character behind until the shoot is over. And I think we all appreciated that, because I think that is the beauty that indie filmmaking can provide.
And no one had to work on their accent, did they?
I will say, for Georgia and I, we know many a person who speaks like that. So it was definitely came easier to her and I. And for Haley and Brooke, yeah, we provided them with some primary sources. So they studied that accent for probably about 3 months leading up to the thing, because we're looking at this really specific region of Western North Carolina, kind of near the Tennessee border. And yeah, it's Appalachia can get very very nuanced in how they speak, because these are such isolated communities that you might have two communities that are only 5 miles apart, but because a river or a mountain ridge separates them, they're never interacting and they sound completely different. So we really had to like hone in on exactly the sound that we wanted to share.
And it was so immersive, like for me and Aiden, like being on that set with like, everyone's dressed in these period costumes. We're in this like beautiful historic area. Everyone's talking with accents. We started talking with accents without even trying. We'd be like, oh, pass me the, I don't remember what the things like, pass me the light, but it would be in the accent. I wouldn't do it now because I would mess it up. But it's the reality, the line between reality and fiction started blurring a little bit.
Sounded like you guys haven't had a lot of fun, especially for this film. Now, Colin, I understand this is your feature film directorial debut, because you've done short films in the past. How was that experience in directing yourself?
Well, luckily this was not my first time directing myself. So I'd done that before in a short that we filmed that went to Dances with Films New York, which was its own, that was kind of where I worked out all the kinks of directing myself. and going back to the trust with the other actors, I mean, that's what it really came down to for me, is trusting them and doing the homework for my character, because the best part, but the hardest part about acting, is doing all this homework, figuring out your character, your relationships to other people, your history, and then showing up on the day and having to let it go and just be there with your scene partner, because nobody wants to watch an actor try to do something. You want to watch an actor authentically living through the moment. So it took a lot of trust in myself, but really in everybody else, to be able to transition in and out of director mode. And I would try to help myself a little bit by scheduling days. So there might be the whole first half of the day I'm not working as an actor. I'm only working as an actor after dinner, or I might have had a day off when we were mainly focusing on Marion and Peggy scenes. But it was a challenge to do, but I'm really grateful for everybody's help.
Yeah, I think just giving yourself the time to just like to settle in before, and like allowing, because like one thing that you did that I thought was very smart was you allowed, like, you know, you asked like, Aiden, can you call action for this scene? So you're not literally being like action, because like you're not ready to go if you're calling action.
Yeah, exactly.
Just so the trust with the other actors, but then also just like the crew was just really helpful.
Yeah.
Chad, you know, the thing is, you're not a fly on the wall on this production set either. I mean, as producer and editor, I mean, how do you navigate your partner through his directing experience?
Wow, that was just like, you know, what's interesting is so I went to film school and he went to acting school. And, you know, we met at the same college. So our love of film together is what actually like got us to meet each other. Like I had made a short film that he then messaged me on Facebook, which feels like already that dates us, right? On Facebook, and we met up because he was making a short film and he wanted some insight on how to do that. So our love of film has always been like one of the pillars of our relationship. So it's so very natural to work with him. I mean, he's an incredible writer, so I've learned so much about writing from him. And I'm sure I probably taught you something, but probably more of the post production, because I'm an editor by day, so I'm always just like hunched over like at the keyboard. So that's really like where like the magic really happens, I feel, and like everything that I work on. I just love the editing. So we were sitting next to each other every editing session. Like he was not a director that'd be like, oh, show me a cut and go off and do stuff. No. We were like right there doing it the whole time. It was actually it was such a rewarding experience, because it's important to have your own ego in terms of like confidence in yourself and your work, but we never let like our personal egos get in the way of the project, because it's all about what makes what tells the story. So we were only ever butting heads on stuff that we both felt would help like tell the story best. So, and then we would never make a decision that the other one was like very unhappy with, because we're both able to see, well, no, that does work. That's just a different way to tell that moment. So it's very natural working with him.
And I mean, because my background is primarily as an actor, I mean, so much of what I've learned about filmmaking, I have learned from him. So I'm always going to want his opinion and his perspective, because I mean, the movie wouldn't have been possible without, you know, all of these people, but it really wouldn't have been possible without Chad.
Oh, Colin.
Just for giggles, which one of you two are the worst critic?
Ooh, that's
really
question.
Good. You know, it's interesting because I think we have complementary tastes. You know, so we watch things very similarly, but our tastes are about kind of different genres. We'll gravitate to different things.
Yeah.
But
I'm a little relentless sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I will like bring something up as like an option, and then 2 weeks later I'll go, I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks. We have to try something, Colin. We have to try something. It's been 2 weeks. He's like, Okay, I mean, I didn't know this was bubbling under the surface for so long. I'll like once I get an idea in my head, it's really hard to like turn it off. Um, but then if it doesn't work, it's gone. Like I'm like, okay, cool, it didn't work. Who's the toughest critic? Do you think?
I don't know. You're
Am I a tough
maybe
critic?
maybe you, but you're so nice about it
It's
that
because
no one would ever
I'm right
know.
there with
So
keyboard editing. It's hard to like
yeah.
it's kind of like when you're editing something, it's like this is true with any genre. This is especially true with like comedy or something. If it's like a frame off, it's terrible. Like it's like it doesn't work at all. So I really gotta like sit there and watch frame by frame for me.
Hmm.
I can tell both of you love this craft. Well, I've taken a lot of both of your time already. So what's up next after this film?
So we're in very early pre-production for our next feature, and I won't give away too much, but I'll say we're going to co-direct that one, and it's from a script that I wrote, and we're working on it also with Georgia, who played Marion. And it will be another period piece, but we're going to be moving into horror, so something a little more commercial, I suppose.
Spicy.
But, yeah, something a little more straightforward, at least in terms of genre. Yeah.
Well, can't wait for that too. Colin, I'm going to toss this one last question. You missed that hair?
Oh, no, I don't. I do not miss it. I'm glad that the color and the length is gone. I'm happy it served Teddy, but it did not serve Colin.
Really? Chad, did you miss his hair?
I like it now. It was so interesting because it was such a very different choice that just like happened. And then it was so like it's so funny because it's so of that time in our lives now. It's like, oh well, that's Teddy's hair. I think it's looking great now.
Oh.
But it looks good at any point.
Oh, good.
You both are terrific. Thank you very much for carrying this conversation for us for Appalachian Dog. Even though the dog was nowhere to be seen, but it's part of the story. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll circle back again for your next film and do this again.
Thank you so much. It's been so wonderful.
Hey, thank you. Next time. Bye now.